Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, you know there's an expression, any given Sunday, right? Have you heard that expression before?
Yeah.
It was a movie also. And so I'm smiling a little bit because the Jets won. And I mean, it's a huge upset too, beating the 9-4 Rams and kind of really putting on pause. I mean, the Rams are going to be in the playoffs, but putting on pause kind of that number one spot. And so, but also for the Jets, it puts a little bit on pause having the number one overall pick. Now they're tied, right, with Jacksonville. So, what were some of your thoughts on the Jets upsetting the Rams? I mean, that's the biggest upset in the NFL so far this year.
Yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. Definitely upset of the year. I know you really like the idea of like it gives you maybe a little bit more momentum going into the new year or into the next season because obviously like Jets have been eliminated since October. No offense, um but like I think there is a little bit of that. I wonder if by winning this game, because like right now, Jacksonville has the inside track for the number one overall pick. They could win a game, who knows? Um, but it does make me wonder, like, could this be one of the worst wins in a while? Because if they end up not getting Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence ends up becoming the stud quarterback that everyone's saying he is, it
Yeah,
might hurt in the long run. But I guess we'll see. Because also
yeah,
Justin Fields, who probably is going to go number two, whether that's to the Jets or Jacksonville, more than likely he's also going to be a star. So
yeah. I watched I texted you because I watched a little bit of Clemson Notre Dame game, and Trevor Lawrence, he's good, man. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's good. And Notre Dame's a really good team, but he's the difference maker, without a doubt.
yeah,
So I just hate to lose, man. I'm glad they're not going 0-16. But in the long run, you're right. I think the win doesn't mean that much, as opposed to maybe getting the first round pick. I so there's a part of me that I want to see what Donald may have under a different coach. I mean, it's hard to think that Gase would be back next year. So I'd almost want to see what Donald has. But you're shaking your head. So what are you thinking?
well, I do think I feel bad for Sam Darnold because I do feel like if let's say it was reversed and the Browns drafted him as opposed to the Jets, I think Sam Darnold would be like, oh, he could be MVP. But I think he was really dealt a bad hand because the Jets don't have a great offense. But I think if you put him with a new coach, um, put him in a new system, a new scheme that kind of fits him more, who knows? I think he could do really well.
Yeah,
I don't know if they'll give him that shot because, like, if they don't get Trevor Lawrence, more than likely they'll get Justin Fields. I could see them maybe if Trevor Lawrence is their guy, he's starting week one. I think if Justin Fields is their guy, I can see Sam Darnold at least starting next season and then maybe kind of going from there. Because like you could always trade. Everyone's always looking for a young quarterback. So you can always
yeah,
trade one of your guys too.
yeah. All right, let's stay on the current event stuff because it's a big night tonight. I don't think I'm gonna watch a movie or anything like that. I think I'm gonna watch Sunday Night Football. It's been a while for both these teams to be in the spotlight here. So Browns Giants, a lot on the line, more for the Giants, I think, than the Browns, but a big game for the Browns as well. So what's the atmosphere like there in Cleveland? And as a big time Giant fan, what are some of your thoughts for tonight?
Um, as someone that's in Cleveland, as a Giants fan, I'm very torn because truth be told, I don't really care who wins. Um, because I do really like what the Browns have done. I love because like everything was really exciting when The Cavs were in the playoffs, but like even when that was happening, like they would talk NBA Finals, but then also talk about drafting Baker Mayfield. Like Cleveland's a hardcore football town. It's been a long time since they've had any semblance of like being a decent team. Last week was such a huge week. Everyone was excited. And even though they didn't win, I think everyone really felt like that huge shot in the arm, like, oh wow, we can actually like play at this level. I think the Browns are really going to come out strong early because they do have that confidence leading back from last week. And also, I'm a little worried about the Giants. Daniel Jones is inactive tonight, so he's not going to play. Colt McCoy's starting. And then, of course, Brown's favorite coach, Freddie Kitchens, is going to be running the offensive plays because Jason Garrett has COVID. So I'm a little worried what that's going to look like. I do think that the Browns are probably going to win. The Giants, though, with the win, would go back into first place. So, like, it's not a must win for the Giants, but essentially it is because they would be a game back with only 2 left. Really hard to come back from that. And also, like, they have the Ravens and then, the Cowboys the last Sunday of the year is going to be kind of a lost game. But then I'm pulling up Washington's schedule. They have Carolina and Philadelphia, both very winnable games. So, like, it wouldn't be – it's hard to see Washington lose another game, which means that for the Giants, if they want to win, they kind of have to win out. And that might be a very tall order.
Yeah, and Philly's playing much better too, though. So
yeah,
you never know. So a lot of places in the Bible that talks about vengeance, right, and us not taking vengeance. But you got to think that Freddie Kitchens is probably, come on, man, we got to win this. You know? I mean, I would think that, and probably if Odell was playing, I would think he'd be the same way, right?
Oh yeah, I think, and it's funny because the last like important game I would say that Giants have played was that 2015 playoff game with the famous boat picture with Odell as one of the main guys there. And yeah, I think Odell would have been like geared up, especially being moved to Sunday night. I think he was really up for it. I think Freddie Kitchens will kind of show like, hey, I can still run an offense. Baker Mayfield had probably some of his best play outside of this year when Freddie Kitchens was playing plays. Not necessarily Freddie Kitchens head coach, but Freddie Kitchens is an offensive coordinator. So I think he definitely has that chip on his shoulder. So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be. I think the Giants are going to show up big time. I wish this is one of those games I wish there were fans in the stands, because I think that because the Giant fans, I mean, it's been 5 years, they're just starving. I think they would just be showing up tonight, big time. And I think that there would be a distinct home field advantage in that sense. But, with just the piped in noise, I don't think there's no advantage there. But I'd like to see the Giants win. I mean, make it interesting here because I do think the Browns can afford the loss. I don't think the Giants can afford to lose. I agree with you. I think that they've got to run the table here, and so I think it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
but that's exciting. Sunday night. So let's stay on current events for another minute or two. NBA season getting ready to start, right? And thoughts on 4 games with the Knicks? What are some of your thoughts? What did they win 3? I think, right, out of the 4. I know it's preseason, but what are some of your thoughts on the Knicks going
in? I would say I feel very optimistic. I'm still a little worried that the Knicks are going to try something that won't work that well. Like James, we'll talk about James Harden in a sec.
Yeah.
I'd be a little leery about adding him to the mix. I think they have the starting of a really good young core. Toppins looked really good. RJ Barrett's looked like he's taken a step forward. Kevin Knox too a little bit.
Yeah.
Mitchell Robinson still doing what he does. I think like if they can continue this momentum, I feel like so often, especially teams at the bottom, something isn't working, so they're trying to shake it up. So bringing in new guys, signing all of these free agents, hiring and firing coaches left and right. Like, to me, I think if the Knicks really want to like build that stability, they've got to keep the guys that they've got at least for the next like 2 or 3 years, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's a great point. You know, the teams in the '90s, while Charles Oakley, came in a trade, and there were Larry Johnson, they signed Allen Houston. And, Patrick Ewing was homegrown. So was John Starks. So was Anthony Mason. There was a good core that that came from the Knicks. I think Knicks fans at this point will be patient and will want to see these guys grow. And so what I'm hearing you say, though, is if there's an opportunity to make a big trade to bring in, a veteran player right now, you would resist that temptation.
Yeah. I guess it would also depend on what they're giving up.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't want to give up any of these young guys right now. And I think, do I have that right? Next year they have 2 first-round picks. Don't they have the one from Dallas too?
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
yeah.
You're going to have 2 more draft picks. Another one, Emmanuel Quickly I saw his stats a couple nights ago. They looked pretty good too.
I think it's
so really for me, I'm like, keep the status quo. Let's kind of see what these guys can do. Knicks aren't winning the title this year anyway. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. So if you could get James Harden, though, without giving up any of the 4 core players that you were talking about, and you had to give up just draft picks, would you do that?
We're recording.
Yeah, there we go. So if you could get, let's just say James Harden, we'll transcend, do a transition to him, because his story's been pretty interesting this week, right? But if you could get James Harden, not give up Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox, R.J. Barrett, or Toppin, and you would just have to trade draft picks and maybe a Julius Randle and a few other players, would you do that?
I would think about it. The only issue is if this core doesn't work, then you're kind of back to that point where they were in like the mid 2000s, where you're bad and you also don't have any draft picks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would consider it if they're like R.J. Barrett, no. Mitchell Robinson, no. But I don't know. I would have to see what they're given.
Well, so let's. I think we'll have some NBA stuff to hit on next week too, and I love a couple of other subjects that you sent me that we can hit next week. But let's transition to James Harden, because here's where I thought you were going. He's a great player. I mean, it's no doubt about it. He's especially a great scorer, right? I don't think he's a great all-around player, and there was some things that came out about he's not great, with his teammates and stuff like that. Put that to the side for a second.
Yeah.
The whole team would revolve around him. And so I'm wondering, and this is where I thought you were going, would that, stifle the development of those 4 players? Because, I mean, who's going to have the ball 50, 60, 70% of the time? It would have to be James Harden.
Yeah. That's also my biggest thing is like, okay, so he's former MVP. The last 3 years, he's led the league in scoring. And he said that he's available. And yet, it doesn't seem like anyone's that interested in trading for him. And I think that kind of says a lot about who he is.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think the locker room issue is a big thing. Part of it probably also is like, I don't want to trade all of my young stars and everything. Like the Nets, they basically would have Harden, Kyrie, KD, and like a bunch of nobodies. Like they wouldn't be able to afford any kind of depth.
Right.
But like these teams are a little worried that he's gonna mess up the locker room. What would be a good fit for him would be the Celtics. The Celtics seem like they might be a smidge behind everyone else. Harden could put them over the top, but also the Celtics are very much an unselfish team. Like Brad Stevens has that culture there, and I don't think James Harden fits it. I think James Harden has shown that he's kind of the center. And what has the Rockets actually done? They came within one game of beating the Warriors that year in 2016. But like other than that, they've really never come that close to the finals. And I think that's kind of telling to like maybe he needs to give up some of that control in order to like actually lead the team somewhere.
Yeah, you just really hit it. So a team like the Celtics, let's just say, right? The Celtics definitely could probably get him if they wanted to because they have enough good players. They have still some draft picks and things like that.
Yeah.
But why would they do that? It would change their culture around totally. I don't think teams like Philadelphia, why haven't they pulled the trigger on it yet? And so I think that teams are feeling that whatever direction they're going in, and I'm not knocking James Harden, right? He is who he is. But I think teams are thinking whatever direction we're going in, we're gonna have to take a total shift, to bring him in. He has to be that much of the focus on the team. It's not like you'll bring him in to fit in. It's the whole organization would have to fit into Harden. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And like some of the reports of like him not showing up to practices and flights on time, then like showing up to report to training camp a couple weeks ago, like posting on Instagram like him smoking and drinking, and everyone is in Houston ready to go. Like it just doesn't look good. And as a person that's in charge, like you have to be the most accountable. Like pastors and teachers are held at a higher standard, not because like God looks at them differently, but because they're leading people, and like your leadership reflects on other people as well.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I think that says it all because he should be held to a different standard as a leader on that team. He looks a little out of shape to me as well, from a couple of highlights that I see. It looks like he's packed on a few pounds. But I think that here's what I see playing out, and I could be wrong. The Sixers may just get desperate and say, okay, we'll give you Ben Simmons or whomever, and there might be another really good team that gets desperate. But what I see, if they do trade him, I think it'll be to a team that maybe didn't make the playoffs last year, that, okay, they're looking for a star and they're looking to rise up and get into playoffs. Maybe a team like Memphis, would probably have enough younger players they could trade for them. I know they're not going to trade their big guy there, John Morant. They're not going to trade him, but maybe they'll say, hey, everybody else, and we'll team these two guys up, and they'll be an exciting team for a while, right? They probably won't win anything, but they'll get to the playoffs. And so I could see a second-tier team like that. See, because, you look at now the NBA, and this is what I'm looking forward to this year because you've got, the LA teams, you've got, the Clippers, and you've got Denver, you've got Dallas, you've got Philly, you've got Miami, obviously, Celtics. You've got all these good up-and-coming teams that are on a good path, and it's going to be exciting because I think it's a lot of parity, but in a good way. And I forgot to mention the Bucks and Indiana. There's some good teams out there. And so
Brooklyn.
Yeah,
did you mention them?
I didn't even mention Brooklyn. So where does Harden fit into that? First of all, he's better off staying in Houston, which I'm not sure why he wants out of there, right? They're paying him $40. Isn't he the highest paid player in the league? They're paying him $40 million a year. So you would think he should stay there. Got a new coach, new culture, build it with them. But he wants out. I would ship him to a team that right now is not so good. Let him go ahead and build that team, and let them. Houston. If I'm them, I'm looking just for assets, just for draft picks and stuff like that. Clear salary space. Because people, I can't remember the last big free agent that signed in Houston, but that's a good franchise to play for, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been pretty consistent.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. Hart. I think that the second you think, we put it in a spiritual perspective, right? We know that the gifts that we have come from God, and the second we think otherwise is when we get in trouble. And
Yeah.
let's just say, you as a pastor of the church, associate pastor of the church, and you're probably the most humble person I've ever known, right? Well, let's just say for a minute you thought that you were more important than that church, then you shouldn't be there anymore. You know what I mean? See, James Harden
Yeah.
is not alone. I think there are other athletes that feel that they're really more important than everything else. And I think some of the all-time greats never gave off that vibe. The Michael Jordans, the LeBron James, Kareem. They always seem to fit into the team concept. But there's
Yeah.
always seems to be, a couple of players. And I hate to say, Carmelo was probably like that for a while. When he was in Denver, especially, and Allen Iverson even. And so the second that happens, and it's happened big time with Harden, I think. But you've won nothing. You haven't gotten to the finals yet. You got to the finals with OKC,
Yeah.
Years ago, but it really wasn't because of you back then. It was Durant's team,
Nah.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens, But I'm excited for the start of the season. I hope they stay safe. I just don't want to see players get sick. But I'm excited for the start. I think where we left off at, you saw some teams really building,
Yeah. And I think something really to watch out for this year is injuries.
Yeah.
Not even just the COVID stuff, because like you're talking 71 day off season, and I know not everyone had that, but like I think two things could happen. A lot of the really good teams that were playing like September, October could be a little too worn down, but then also you have a lot of the teams like the Cavs, the Knicks, the Magic, teams that haven't played since March, going and trying to do too much too early, and then also getting hurt too. So
Yeah.
I think that's something that you might see early on, but I guess we'll also see. The NBA is also making some regulations, like you know how they can be kind of strict on like, especially nationally televised games. They're going to be a lot more relaxed on those rules this year, and understandably so.
Well, that's where I think, a team like the Knicks could steal a couple of games here early, right? If they're, going up against one of these teams that went deep into the playoffs and they're sitting their top, guys, and, Knicks have those young legs, I think that you might see the Knicks steal a couple of games here. Not just the Knicks, but like the Cavs and some of the teams that you just named, Orlando, New Orleans even. So I think you'll see some of these teams get off, but everything will even out a little bit, as the season goes on. Too bad no All-Star game, this year. Even though they've gotten a little bit better with being more serious with the game itself the last couple of years, and I want to, hopefully I'll see that trend. I'm going to send you a video later on of the 1972 All-Star game. I just want you to watch like the last 10 minutes of it and see how they played. That's kind of the first one that I can remember as a kid, All right. Hey, so you sent me a really interesting article about, and this is just baseball. We could talk about other sports down the road. The best players at each position that's never won a championship yet. So really interesting. Why don't we go through that list? Because the list not only talked about the best current players, it also gave what they felt were, and this is on MLB.com, what they felt were the best players that are now retired. And some of them are Hall of Famers. In fact, I think most of them are, that never got a chance to get a ring. And so I'm going to fire them off, and I want to hear your comments on them. So a catcher, they have right now JT Realmuto as the best catcher who hasn't won anything just yet. Thoughts?
I don't know. To me, and I know catcher can be so weird. I feel like JT Realmuto is a little overrated. I could eat those words, and he could be an all-star next year and MVP candidate for whoever he plays with. But I do feel like he's a little overrated.
Yeah. Okay, I can't disagree. I like him, but there's a reason why the Mets didn't sign him and they went with McCann, and I think we'll figure that out as this season unfolds. The classic one that they have, Hall of Famer Carlton Fisk, a phenomenal career. You're too young to remember him. I mean, he hit obviously that famous home run in the '75 World Series, right? Yeah, and but he played for the White Sox for a long time, and he was one of those relatively early free agents. A great player, great player. I was surprised that I thought he had won a ring, but the White Sox, he played on some pretty not so great White Sox teams for a long time, as well. All right, first base, Joey Votto.
Yeah, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of those guys I respect because, like, probably the only thing missing on his resume is a ring. And he could have easily been like, I want out of Cincinnati, trade me to a contender. But he's always been there.
Yeah.
I think for him, that.
Yeah, he stuck it out there in Cincinnati, hasn't he?
Yeah. And I think that shows a lot of his character. I think loyalty, that's probably a topic we could talk about for a while. But I think I think it shows a lot about who he is.
Yeah, he's clearly, clearly the leader of that team. You can tell the other players really look up to him. I'd like to see him get a ring. Maybe Cincinnati, I think, is building something pretty good. I think they're going to be a good team for a few years, but age starts to catch up. Now the classic player is a guy that you would remember a little bit. Jeff Bagwell is the one that never won a ring. It's funny. I remember that those Astro teams though winning a lot, but I guess they never got over the hump, right? They lost to the White Sox in the World Series. Yeah. Bagwell was a great player. There's just nothing else to say about it. He was just a clutch hitter, a power hitter, great fielding first baseman. Excellent player. I was surprised. I thought for some reason that those Astro teams won a ring, but I'm thinking of the more modern ones, more modern Astros. All right, second base, your guy is who they named. DJ LeMahieu. They're saying he's the best second baseman right now that hasn't won a ring. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue against that. I saw now, I don't agree with this, but I did see Bo Bichette said that he thinks DJ LeMahieu is the best hitter in the game. I don't think he's the best, but he's definitely like a top 10 hitter right now. So, yeah, I would say hopefully he'll win a ring with the Yankees, but we'll see.
Yeah, if he stays put, he'll win a ring. The Yankees are going to win. They're going to get over the hump this next year or two at the most.
Yeah.
So if he's like a 5-year deal with the Yankees, he'll get a ring. If he signs a 5-year deal just for the money somewhere, he'll wind up on this list as a Hall of Famer, I think, that never had a ring. One of my all-time favorite players is who they named here, and that's Rod Carew. And that's because, he's from the Bronx. I played in the Rod Carew Little League when I was a kid for 1 year. And I think it was 78. He had one of the best seasons ever. I think he had 14 homers, 100 RBIs. And that was the year that he batted 390. He flirted with 400. Or he might have batted 288. 388, rather. That was the year he flirted. He was at 400 most of the year. Great career split between the Twins and the Angels. Never played on the big stage, though. I think early in his career, the Twins had made the playoffs a few times. But later in his career, the Angels, he was on the Angels teams that made the playoffs a couple of times, but never got over the hump, never got to the World Series. Interesting guy at shortstop they named. Andrelton Simmons is who they're thinking is the best shortstop right now to not have a ring.
Yeah. I would say it should be Francisco Lindor. He doesn't have a ring. Yeah. But maybe because Simmons has been around longer. But I don't agree with that. I would say it's Lindor. Hopefully he won't say that in a few years. Because he'll be playing shortstop with the Yankees, but who knows?
Well, I thought you were gonna say with the Mets, but okay. Simmons, that was an odd pick, I thought. He's a good player, but I never looked at him as like the best in his position. Robin Yount, a classic one. And Robin Yount, they put him at shortstop. He spent a lot of his career in center field with the Brewers. Got to the World Series, Hall of Famer, great player, never won a ring. So I think that's a good choice there. All right, third baseman is I think we both like this player, and that's Evan Longoria.
Yeah. It's like I have zero hard feelings about the famous 162 home run. I would agree with that. He's one of those, like, he was with all those Rays teams. If the Rays had won the title without him this year, I would have kind of felt a little sad for him. I would say definitely a Hall of Famer, though.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he's also been in the wrong place at the wrong time, because he's not going to win anything with the Giants, not anytime soon. They're definitely rebuilding. Maybe he gets to a contender here late in his career. He came close with Tampa.
There we go.
That's right. Yep, he came close with Tampa. But I feel bad for him because he was a great player, and he was clearly the leader of those Tampa teams. But maybe he gets traded late in his career to a contender, and he's a DH or a bat off the bench or something like that.
Yeah.
Adrian Beltre, recent retiree, is who they name as kind of the classic guy. I can't argue with that. I mean, I think he'll wind up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, first ballot, I would say.
All right, the outfielders are very interesting. I'm anxious for your reaction here. Best outfielder, one of the best outfielders they're saying, I guess it's left field, that has not won a ring is Ryan Braun. What are some of your thoughts there?
Doesn't deserve a ring, but no, seriously, I think really he does have the MVP, but he shouldn't have it. But like left field, I would have to think hard about that one.
Yeah. Well, easy one on the class. Well, listen, let me get back to Ryan Braun for 1 second. It was one thing that you did steroids. There was a whole other thing that, you ruined this writer's career and you ruined the tester's career and, you threw everybody else under, which is why I think it took A-Rod longer to come back into good graces, because I think the average baseball fan doesn't really care that some of these guys took steroids, because I think the feeling is that through that era in the 90s and thousands, a lot of players did. Doesn't make it right, but I think a lot of players. But I think what Ryan Braun did after was reprehensible, to a lot of people, except the people in Milwaukee, So I don't think he'll go anywhere in the Hall of Fame, unfortunately.
No.
But speaking of coming near the Hall of Fame, the guy that they say is the best left fielder, not in the Hall of Fame, or didn't win a championship, is Mr. Barry Bonds.
It's hard to argue that one, though.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. And I'm seeing the early voting. I don't know if you're following that. Excuse me. They have the first 53% or first 49%. And he's actually doing pretty well in the voting so far. Him and Clemens.
Wow.
Well,
this is their last year, right?
No, this year. Apparently, there are writers that I guess you get to see the updated ballots. Like, I think 49% of the votes are in. We'll see.
How many more years of eligibility do they have?
They have this
one
year
or two, right?
Year. Yeah, they have two. They have this year.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Veterans Committee ain't voting them in, so
Nah.
All right, so how about this one? This is a no-brainer, right? Best center fielder, Mike Trout.
Oh yeah, easily. He's the best player in baseball. I know some people say Mookie Betts, but I don't know. To me, Mike Trout's better.
I agree. And I'd like to see him in a World Series. I think he would just. I could see him doing like Roberto Clemente in '71 and some of these guys out, great players for years, and it was even Bonds in what was that, 2002, 2003, whatever it was that he got to the World Series. He had a great series. A-Rod. I'd love to see Trout, get to the World Series. Hopefully the Angels will get good. The guy they say is no-brainer also, Ken Griffey.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's a no-brainer. Here's an interesting one for I guess right field. Your guy, Giancarlo Stanton.
I don't even think he's the best right fielder on the Yankees.
Oh.
Well, I don't even say that as shade. Like, I think Aaron Judge is better.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
well, I guess maybe they're considering looking at full career. He did play in Miami, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Larry Walker is the one that they named that didn't get a ring, and he's gotten to the Hall of Fame, right? Larry Walker, great player. Yeah, Larry Walker was a terrific player, but he also was kind of wrong place, wrong time. I think even the last 2 years of his career, he was over the Cardinals when they were really good, and when the Cardinals were going like to the World Series every other year, and they did the couple of years that he was with them. So he kind of was a little bit hard luck. Designated hitter, Nelson Cruz.
Huh? Yeah, I think Nelson Cruz is one of those guys. I'll always remember him for when the Mets decided not to sign him. But like, I think he's one of those guys that he's been very consistent. I would have to look this up for sure, but I think he had the most home runs in the 2010s. And
Yeah, that's
like,
accurate. Yeah.
and like he's kind of there. He's very consistent. He does his thing. It's hard to argue that. I don't know who else I would put in there. It's like a full-time DH. He's like the only guy I can think of that's like hardcore full-time DH.
Yeah, I mean, every year he has like 35, 40, 45 home runs every year. And he's like 41, 42 years old now. And he's going to be hitting 35 home runs again this year, whoever he's with. I think he's probably still with the Twins. A no-brainer on the guy that they say is the legendary guy, and that's Edgar Martinez. Never won a ring. Mariners never got to the World Series, but he was phenomenal player. All right, Zach Greinke is the starting pitcher. They're saying best starting pitcher to not win a ring.
Yeah, right now I think he would probably be the guy.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe not. I think actually no, definitely not. Garrett Cole hasn't won a ring. Neither has Jacob deGrom. I think both of those guys are better.
DeGrom was who I was
Yeah. But I mean, Zach Greinke is he's one of those guys, probably going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know about first ballot, but he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Probably the only thing missing on his resume is a title. And he came close. I mean,
yeah,
not his fault the Astros lost.
Yeah, he's been on some really good teams. And I agree, he's not the best, I think. Maybe they were thinking longevity, for now. Phil Niekro, that was an odd choice, is kind of the guy they said. But he had over 300 wins, if I remember right. He was boring. He was a knuckleball pitcher. He finished his career with the Yankees. He had some really good years, actually, with the Yankees. Most of his career was with the Braves. All right, relief pitcher, they're saying Joakim Soria is the best relief pitcher to best closer to not have a ring just yet.
That I'm surprised at, because I thought he would have won one with Kansas City. I guess he wasn't on that team.
Yeah, I'm surprised too. But yeah, they named him. He's good. I mean, I don't even know, who is he with now?
I don't know. Let's see if I can find out real quick.
Yeah. While you're looking him up, Lee Smith is the other one that they say was good. And Lee Smith was on some good teams, not with so much with the Cubs, but with the Cardinals. Who's he with now? Sorry?
He's with Oakland.
Oh, he's with
I
Oakland.
think I do remember that.
I
don't think he's closing though. Yeah, he could.
Yeah, he might get a ring. And the last one is the manager. And this guy was one of my favorite players. And we talk about hard luck. It's Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
The guy's a great manager. I mean, how close do you come with the Cubs, the Giants? I don't know. He just for some reason he gets in a hard luck. You know, even with the Nationals and Cincinnati. I mean, the guy everywhere he's gone, he wins.
Last year with Houston, like they had no business being a game away from the World Series.
Yeah, I don't know what he does as a manager,
and yet they did.
Yeah, he does something. I don't know what it is. All right. I think we've gone long enough. We're actually at 40 minutes this week, so but it's all good. It's been great conversation, So, and so, Kenny, anything else you would add to that? So anyway, we've gone almost 40 minutes. Anything else you would add to that list? That was a good list. That was fun.
That was fun. Yeah. I think probably something, maybe this would be a future podcast anyway. Maybe we look at like a span of a few years, like teams that you're surprised never won a title. Like the late 90s Mariners would be on there. Yeah. Maybe also the late 90s Indians. But I think that might be a fun thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, the mid to late 80s Mets only winning one. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So let's wrap up. Let me get some music here for the podcast. So it's been a lot of fun. We won't see you guys until after Christmas for folks that are listening. So have a phenomenal Christmas. And, we'll talk to you real soon. So, Kenny, why don't I let you sign off tonight?
All right. So this is this is Kenny Squared N.
And
Kenny, I don't know if that works.
Again, yeah, it works.
All right. With sports on the positive tip, we'll see you guys next week, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. All right. Thanks.